Hello, Herman Deal, the real deal here. Here I am with Rusty. Today we're going to talk about dogs, cats, diabetes in dogs and cats. Now, diabetes has been increasing for dogs and cats just like it has been for humans. Some people say dogs and cats, they're not living as long as they used to be, but then I find conflicting evidence that they kind of are living longer than they used to be, according to veterinary studies. It's hard to really know who's correct, who's not. I think there's debate in that. And I don't think those statistics are kept nearly as good as with humans in, are dogs really living longer or not? Because I know some dog food brands out there, they like to sell, oh, dogs aren't living as long as they used to be. And it's hard to figure out if that's really true. So I'm undecided on that. But definitely the diabetes cases have been increasing in dogs. And this is just something we can look at with dogs to also apply to humans. And here we see this picture here, the unrelenting march of diabetes. And this is looking at humans. For whatever reason, it was very difficult for me to find like any charts at all indicating statistically how dogs and cats have been getting more diabetes. So it's been more veterinarians and just incidents of higher cases of diabetes, but I couldn't find graphs. But if we look at this here, this is human diabetes. The yellow part there, is that yellow? That's like an orange turmeric type color, but that represents 1980. So this is like a timeline here. So between 1980 and 2014, we can see how diabetes has increased in different regions of the world. And if we look at the United States, we had about 5% of diabetes back in 1980. And then come 2014, we have 8.3%. And if we look at the rest of the world, yes, there's been some dramatic increases in diabetes, more so than in the United States, in different parts of the world. And I think some of that is, well, obviously, a big portion of this is related to diet, processed foods, processed junk, bread, wheat, the cheap filler foods. I like to call wheat and bread and pasta filler foods, foods you don't really need, just to fill up your stomach, not nearly as nutrient dense as meat and animal products are. But in any case, diabetes has been increasing all over the world for humans, as it also has been with dogs and cats. Here we can see glucose monitors for dogs and cats, injections for them to get insulin shots. We now have glucose monitors specifically just for dogs. And here we have an image from a veterinary clinic indicating where to inject the insulin in a cat. Where are the places where we could inject? And here we have an insulin reduction chart showing the dosages and whatnot that we need to give dogs because they have, when they have diabetes, how much insulin to give them. It's become something way, way more common with dogs and cats. Veterinarians, similar to medical doctors, they manage disease. They don't necessarily look to cure the disease, they manage it. That's what they were taught in school. They're not taught a lot of diet information, just like medical doctors are not taught a lot about diets. So they manage. They don't look to get to the root cause of disease, especially chronic diseases. For me, an MD stands for managing doctor, and I would say that's likely true also for veterinarians because they are taught in a medical model. They are taught to give medicine, do surgery, do procedures, not advise as much with diet. Although sometimes they do often ask, what are you feeding the cat? More so than they do with humans, but still, it's not always getting to the root cause of disease. And here in this chart, we can see the percentage of glucose and the difference between humans, dogs, and cats. And you know that we as humans, we like to think that the dogs and cats are very similar to us, but they're not. I mean, they are mammals like we humans are, but they are different. And you can see here a very obvious difference in glucose level. Dogs could tolerate a little bit more carbohydrates than cats. Cats are more what you call primary carnivores, or obligate carnivores, meaning that if you feed a cat fruit, it'll probably gain weight faster and affect it negatively faster than it will a dog, because they're just even more carnivorous than dogs, and dogs are still more carnivorous than humans. And here we can see the differences in glucose. And here's an example where it's like, yes, a lot of veterinarians will acknowledge that diet makes a big difference. And a better treat, if you look at the bottom here, a better treat is supposed to be where you have high protein, but they consider 63% high protein. I don't see that as high protein. Why is it not 85, 95% protein? I mean, these are dogs and cats. They should be eating even more protein than humans. They should be more carnivore than humans. And then we look at the other dog treats, and that has under 30% protein. I mean, obviously that is junk. That's like processed junk that's just going to make your dog or cat fat, just like it would in humans. We eat processed junk in humans, we get fat. Same thing with a dog and cat. My argument would be that even better than a better treat, that percentage of high protein, 63, I think that should be 90 something. And that's just my opinion, but it just makes sense to me. Hope that information was helpful. And one thing a lot of people like to say, especially about indoor cats, because it seems like indoor cats can get diabetes quicker. It makes sense they would, because number one, they're probably running around a lot less, getting less exercise. And then on top of that, they're getting fed not such great food with only somewhere between 30 and 60% protein. Not ideal. So if you have an indoor cat, you should be feeding it, I would feed it regular meat. Meat. What about just feeding them meat? I know there's some companies out there that feed raw dog food. You can do that where it's like 100% or close to it, just pure meat. And then you can also feed it, cook and feed your own dog or cat regular meat as well. This would be the ideal, and especially for cats because they're indoors getting less exercise. In any case, I hope you all found this information interesting. Thank you for watching. I'll be back Monday again with another video, and Thursday with Mr. Skeptical. Bye.